Hey guys, Trey back again with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be continuing on with our programming fundamentals playlist. In the last video, we were talking all about arrays. We learned what an array is, how to declare an array, how to change a value within an array, and also how to get a value from an array. Okay, so if you missed that video, go ahead and go check it out. In today's video, we're going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to arrays. They're almost always seen together. It's like peanut butter and jelly. You know how some people do eat peanut butter sandwiches and some people may eat jelly sandwiches, but most of the time you're going to see a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So that's how arrays and loops are. Usually when you see an array, there's a loop somewhere. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we did last time. As we can see here, we have declared our array here. And let's say we wanted to do something to each one of these values, right? So each value in this array, we wanted to add one to it, all right? So based off of what we know now, this is the way we would do that. We would say ARR 0. So we're getting this 1. This is the first position, which is 0. All right, and then we'd have to set that value to whatever ARR 0 is, which would be 1 in this case, and then we would add 1. Okay, so that would add 1 to ARR, and then we'll set ARR 0 to that new value. Okay, and then we just do this 2 more times. All right, so I copy paste, and then the only thing we need to change is the position. So we do position 1 and then position 2. So this will change position 0, this will change position 1, and this will change position 2. And all it's going to do is add 1 to each one of the respective values. So our new array would be 2, 3, 4. So to prove that, I'm going to print it out. All right, and then we're going to run this. So it'll be node pf lesson 4. Oops, not 3. 4.js. All right, and as you can see, we get 2, 3, 4 back. All right, so this is fine. There's nothing wrong with this code, but it's kind of inefficient because of the fact that we're repeating code here. As you can see, these are 3 lines are pretty much the same thing. The only thing that's changing is the position that we are working with here. So we want to go through all of these, and we want to apply this logic, this add 1 logic, to each one of these values. So in programming, we have a concept that allows us to do this, which is called loops. It's basically what you think it is. It's something that goes around and around and around until it's done. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in our lesson 5. So lesson 5, of course, we're talking about loops, like I just said. And basically, loops are just a way to repeat logical steps. Okay, so if we go back to our PF lesson 4, we see that we have these logical steps here, these 3 logical steps, and as we can see, they're pretty much repeating. So instead of writing out 3 lines of the same thing, we should be able to write this one time and repeat it for different positions in the array. All right, so we can do that. That's a thing that we can do, and that's what we're going to do with this loop. You're probably wondering, well, why do we need to do that? There's only 3 values in this array, but understand arrays can get really big. We can have an array of 1,000 things. Are you going to sit here and write 1,000 lines of this same thing? No, you want a more efficient way to do it. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that. When we're writing a loop, there are 3 different types that you can write. Okay, so it's basically just a different way of writing it. It'll do the same thing functionally. We'll still end up with this same exact array, but there are 3 different flavors that you can write a loop in. Okay, there's a for loop, a while loop, and a do while loop. Okay, so the only one we're going to be talking about today is the for loop, because that's pretty much, if you Google programming loop, 4 is probably going to be the first one that you're going to see. Okay, so we're going to go over that one first. It's the most common, and yeah, I think it's a great place to start. So let's scroll down here. We see right here. So this is the for loop. And this comment here is basically showing you the structure of the for loop. So the first thing we have here is, of course, we declare it by saying for. Then we have this opening parenthesis. Then we have this open parenthesis. And then we have our first segment of the for loop. And this is where we initialize our variable. All right. So if we come down here to line 16, we can see where that's happening at. Where this should look very familiar to you. This is just declaring a variable. We're declaring a number variable that's value is 0. We're called it I. Okay. So we initialize a variable here, and this is basically going to keep track of which position we are at. So let's take a look at line 15 here. So we have this array, and we're starting off with I equaling 0. So the first position that we want to work with is this 0. Okay, that's basically all this is doing. It's just setting up a variable to keep track of what position we're at. Okay, so remember with arrays is position 0, position 1, position 2. Okay. All right, so the first little section is that. So we declare a variable. All right. The next part is a stop condition. So remember, the loop is going to repeat. It's just going to keep repeating, and we need to tell it when to stop. That's what this second part of the for loop is. It's to tell the loop when to stop. So as we can see, if we come back to line 16, we see that after this semicolon here, from this is declaring this. After this semicolon, we have our declaration for the stop condition. So the stop condition is basically saying, hey, if our I, this value that we're using to keep track of where we are in the array, if it's less than 3, then keep going. We're saying, hey, if it's less than 3, keep going through the loop. When this condition is false, that's when we will stop looping. Okay. So I is less than 3, then we're good to go. If I equals 3 or is greater than 3, then we don't want to do this loop anymore. All right. So that's basically all that is, just a stop condition. When the stop condition is false, we will stop. So the next part of the for loop is the third part, which is the increment value. So if we look here, remember this is our stop condition. After the semicolon, we will have our increment value. So basically what this is just the value that tells us how much we want to change I by after every time that we complete the loop. Remember, the loop's going to do some logical step, and then it's going to start over with a new position. So this is telling you which position you want to do next. Okay. So with us, we only want to go to the next position because we want to do all of these, right? So we're going to start at this position, then we want to go to the next position, and then the next position until we get to the end of our loop. Okay. So with this here, we're going to say we want I plus 1, and then we're going to set that back to I. So at that point, that's pretty much the whole loop. Now we just need to take a look at the actual steps that we're going to run. All right. So this basically sets up the for loop. Everything the for loop needs to know about how to run is done here. So the for loop knows that, hey, you want to start at position 0. You want to go until we hit position 3, and you want to increment I by 1. Okay, that's all this is. Okay, and then now this is the actual steps that we want to run. So we put these in curly braces, as you can see here. And then if you come to line 12, steps to repeat, that's basically the steps that are getting repeated. So this is the step we're going to repeat. So what I want to do is I want to copy this, all right? And then I want to go back to our lesson 4, and I'm going to paste it right under here. As you can see, this is pretty much the same lines, right? So let me, I'm going to change this for array to ARR just to help you visualize it better. Doesn't this look a lot like this? That's because it's the same thing. The only difference is instead of having hard-coded positions, we have a variable that tells us what position we are at. And then we add 1 to whatever position that is. So that's the power of a loop. We don't have to keep writing all this down. We just change the variable. We have a variable that we set up and we change it. And we can say which position we want to change in the loop. All right. So let's go back over here. And now this is the step we want to run. So we're going to say in our for array up here, we're going to get whatever position I is at the time. So remember, when we first start this loop, I is going to be 0. Okay, so we want the 0 position. So we're saying the 0 position, for the 0 position, I want to assign whatever the value at the 0 position is, which is 10 at this time, and we're going to add 1 to it, which will turn this into 11. Once this gets to the bottom of the loop and it touches this closing curly brace, we're going to go back up here and we're going to take a look at this value here. So we're going to say, okay, we've reached the bottom. Let's go ahead and increment. Let's change this I by the increment value. So we're saying we have this I. We want to add 1 to it. So what is I right now? Right now, I is 0. So we're going to take 0 and add 1 to it. So now I is equal to 0 plus 1, which means it's 1. So once it increments this value, it's going to check the stop condition. It's going to say, okay, we just incremented the I. Let's see if the stop condition has been met. So now we're going to say is 1, because remember, I is now 1. So it's going to say is 1 less than 3. That is true. So since this is true, we're going to go ahead and go back through the loop. So we're going to say in our for array, get whatever position I is. So at this time, I is 1, remember? So I is going to be position 1, which is right here. So we're going to say take position 1 and assign whatever the value at position 1 is. So this is 20. And then we're going to add 1 to it. So that'll be 21. So it's saying set position 1 to the value of 21. All right. That's basically what this line is doing. And then we're going to get back down here. We're going to touch this at the end of the for loop. So we're going to go back up here. We're going to run this increment again. Remember, right now we're at position 1. So we're going to say 1 plus 1, which is 2. And then we're going to assign that to I. All right. So now I is position 2. So that's here. All right. And then we're going to, once we increment, we're going back here to check the stop condition once again. And now the stop condition is saying is 2 less than 3. That is true. So since this is true, we're going to run the for loop. So we go back down here and we say in our for array, let's get position 2. All right. And we're going to set that to whatever the value at position 2 is, which is 30 plus 1. So we're going to say 30 plus 1 is 31. So we're taking 31 and we're assigning it to the position of 2 because I is equal to 2 at this moment. All right. So once that happens, we will set this to 31. And now we're touching the end of the for loop again. So we're going to go back up. We're going to increment I once again. So I is 2, right? So we're going to do 2 plus 1, which is 3. We're going to assign that to I. And then we're going to go check the stop condition. So the stop condition says is I less than 3. So I is 3 at the moment. So is 3 less than 3? Nope, that's false. So once the stop condition is false, we stop doing this loop. So we don't do this anymore. And we come outside of the loop and we run this next line, whatever it is. All right, in this case, it's our console.log. That means once this for loop finishes running, we will have 11, 21, and 31. All right. So to prove that, I'm going to comment out the rest of this stuff I have here. And then we're going to run this file. Okay. So I'm going to clear that. I'm going to say node pf lesson 5.js. And as you can see, we are printing out 11, 21, and 31. So the loop is nothing but a way to repeat logical steps a certain amount of times. Okay, that's all it is. Yep, so that's it for this video. In the next videos, we'll probably go over the while and do while loops, since you kind of understand how the loops go. Hopefully I explained this well. If I didn't, you guys let me know in the comments. I will make another video explaining it, because the loops are kind of difficult to understand when you're first learning how to program. I tried to break it down as much as I could. If there's something that's not understandable, then just let me know in the comments. All right. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel and all that jazz. And I will see you guys in the next video.